Okay, Butch Patrick here with another 2020 Coast to Coast segment, and today's subject is Evel Knievel, my good buddy and probably the world's greatest showman, daredevil. In case you don't know who Evel Knievel is, you're from another planet or you've been living in a cave for the last 1,000 years, here's a little bit of background on him. Robert Craig Knievel was born October 17, 1938 in the copper mining town of Butte, Montana. He became Evel Knievel while in jail for reckless driving. Police were holding a man named Knievel, who they called Awful Knievel, and they started calling Robert Knievel Evel Knievel. The name stuck, and some years later, Robert legally took the name Evel, changing the I to E because he said he thought it looked better. Evel's first motorcycle was a Harley Davidson, which he stole when he was 13. At 27, he bought a motorcycle shop. In order to attract customers, he announced he'd jump his motorcycle 40 feet over parked cars and a box of rattlesnakes. Although he landed on the rattlesnakes, he realized that he could draw crowds doing these kinds of stunts, and thus the legendary stuntman's true calling was made clear. In 1968, Evel became a worldwide celebrity after he attempted to jump over the fountain at Caesar's Palace. The stunt ended in a spectacular wreck that almost cost him his life. In an effort to keep his name in the press, Evel announced he would jump over the Grand Canyon. While this never actually happened, he did land in the Guinness Book of Records for other successful jumps. By the early 70s, Evel was one of the most famous people in the world and earning millions of dollars. As famous for his crashes as his successes, he was rumored to have broken every bone in his body at one time or another, a rumor he dispelled when he clarified that he had broken 35 bones. In 1977, after a failed attempt to jump over a tank full of live sharks that caused him 2 broken arms and cost a cameraman an eye, Evel retired from major performances. He continued to make public appearances and to promote his son Robbie's career. In 1989, in an homage to his father, Robbie became the first person to successfully jump the Caesar Palace fountains. On November 30th, 2007, plagued with ill health, including diabetes and lung disease, and in pain from the trauma his body had sustained over the years, Evel Knievel died at the age of 69. He was buried at Mountain View Cemetery in Butte, Montana. I was lucky enough to meet Evel. Geez, it's been about 20 years now as we were doing a Little Caesars pizza commercial of all things.
They don't charge a lot, so they can't afford a big name. You're perfect. Knievel! Are you feeling it, Evel?
We were hired, me, him, and Jimmy Walker, to do a campaign featuring celebrities that didn't charge a lot of money for the Little Caesars because they don't charge a lot of money for their pizzas. So anyway, I went to work with Evel and Jimmy Walker. We were supposed to do 4 commercials, actually. I mean, we stopped after 2 because although the public loved the idea of the pizza commercial, they thought it was for Pizza Hut. So obviously Little Caesars didn't want to be funding a Pizza Hut campaign. So we did 2, and after that we became friends. I lived in Florida, he lived in Florida. It was really cool for me because Evel Knievel, to me, as growing up as a kid, was like larger than life. I had a dirt bike, he was jumping motorcycles, he was jumping cars, he was just all over the place. And I mean, who didn't have an Evel Knievel stunt cycle under the Christmas tree at one time or another? For me, learning to be with him and hang out with him, it was really cool stuff. He became a very good friend of mine. We would lunch maybe once a month. I went to his shop, I got to know him and his people. Just a really interesting man. He was probably larger than life, probably the type of person Muhammad Ali or maybe Walt Disney or one of the big name people when he walked into a room that you just knew you were in the presence of greatness. It was funny, one time when we were riding in a limo together, I finally cornered him and I said, so tell me about the Snake River jump, because everybody wanted to know what went wrong with the rocket cycle. And he, if you knew Evel, you knew he liked to drink, and he was a partier, so he actually thought he was going to die that day. He was pretty much convinced this blast rocket would be the end of the Evel Knievel era in his life. So what he did, he told me that he drank 11 shots of wild turkey before he got on the crane that lifted him up to put him into the cycle before the jump. So he said he almost fell off there and almost killed himself before he even got into the sky cycle, they called it. The cycle took off like a bottle rocket, you know, from 0 to like several hundred miles an hour, like that, which caused him to black out, and which also caused the chute to deploy prematurely. But lucky for him it did. Had it not, he would have landed in the Snake River, he would have died, and we would have never had the conversation about what went wrong. Cool guy, loved his cars, loved his women, loved money, knew how to make money, and I was always impressed that how one guy on a motorcycle could captivate an entire world. He was like pretty much considered to be the last great American showman, the daredevil. He would set up a jump, get 100,000 people into an arena, plus a TV crowd or an audience crowd, and they would sit and wait for a guy to just do a 12-second jump, for hours and hours on end. It's amazing how he could captivate an audience into something as simple as a motorcycle jump. It was just, he had that charisma that people wanted to see what he was up to next. And I was lucky enough to get to know him. He actually lent me his helmet once for it was called a Festival of States go-kart race, but all the go-karts were made out to look like Indy cars. And I was going to drive a friend's car for the Undertow Beach Bar in St. Pete. Evel loaned me his helmet because I didn't have one. So when I put the helmet on and got in the car, everybody thought Evel Knievel was behind him. And I went from number 13 to number 2 in one lap. And I was driving like Evel Knievel, pushing people out of the way, rear-ending them. So anyway, we came in second because the car malfunctioned, and I handed over driver duties over to my buddy Joe. But it was just funny to have Evel Knievel's helmet on and have people turn around and get the respect that Evel had, even though it wasn't really me. So anyway, as I travel coast to coast, we're going to come up with interesting stories from not only people I've worked with, people I haven't worked with, local legends in whatever area I'm supposed to go to, and we will be bringing interesting things about the American road trip to you, kind of like an extended version, a new millennial version of Charles Kuralt's On the Road. So until we meet again on the next chapter of Coast to Coast 2020, signing off, this is Butch Patrick. As always, you need to subscribe, and even if you're not in Philadelphia, ring that bell.